Good morning, everyone. This is Nathan Barna here. Welcome to the Evolve Radio. Today, I'm going to attempt to do something challenging for me, something I've been studying and trying to wrap my mind around for quite some time now. But I want to try to formulate those thoughts into something understandable for you guys. And that is the idea that everything is love. Now, that's probably something many of you have heard, and many of you may have some understanding of. And it's something that until recently I've only been able to come to terms with at an intellectual level, but recently I've had more of a direct experience of this truth for me. And so to start it off, we kind of have to go all the way to the beginning, per se, and that is we have to understand what God is, or what the source of everything is. And that's the term that when I say God, that's what I'm meaning when I'm saying God. And I would write that as capital G, capital O, capital D, God, not capital G, lowercase o, D, God, that typically people use to refer to some higher being or, daddy figure or mother figure in the sky, per se. So we have to go all the way back and look at the source of everything. And if you look at the source of everything, there's two truths to that. And one is that it is absolutely empty of everything. And the other is that it is absolutely full of everything. And one way to look at this is the idea of zero. By definition, zero is zero. Zero is no thing. But because it is no thing, it has the potential, and it has the implication of everything. So therefore, zero is everything and no thing simultaneously, because obviously it's zero, but in the same time, it has the potential to be whatever value, whatever thing that you want to assign to that. The same is true with the source of everything, or God. It is the absolute potential. It is empty of everything and therefore serves as a container for anything. And you can also look at this as the analogy of a sphere whose circumference is nowhere, but whose center is everywhere. Okay, so source is everything and no thing simultaneously, and therefore it is both the masculine and the feminine. The feminine being the receptivity, the container, the emptiness, and the masculine being the fullness and the thing that wants to fill the container. So those are the two forces that create everything in our known universe. This is what we are working with. Now that we've established that foundation, when you start to look at God and look at what God is, therefore, you come to the conclusion that God is love. And what kind of love? God is unconditional love. Because it is everything and nothing, therefore it has everything and wants nothing. So it is unconditional in that form, in that way. So because God is, by definition, unconditional love, it says yes to everything. And this is where a lot of people get hung up on the concept of love, because they feel that love has to have some form of condition to be love. You know, you have to act a certain way to receive love. You have to be worthy of love. And therefore a lot of this stems from our programming and our conditioning, you know, through our society and through different religions, especially Christianity, because that's one of the big ones, especially in the West. So with the idea of love as being unconditional in its truest nature, we have to accept that it is both the light and the dark. Because by definition, if it's unconditional, it says yes to everything. And so when we look out into our world, we see things that we label as good and bad, or right and wrong, or good and evil. And we have to realize that those are just relativities that we've created. It's not to say that they're bad. They're, you know, it's wrong or right or wrong even to have those relativities, but we have to realize that they are relativities. And usually we accept those relativities as a nature of what is moving towards more love and more connection on a more surface level, and what is moving away from that love and that connection and moving towards separation. Because really, God as the source of everything and as this pure potential, the only way that it can know itself, if it is everything and there is nothing behind it, it has to create the illusion of separateness. So when we have this experience of consciousness, and when we are relating in our one mind that is connected to the one mind, as we move further and further in our spiritual development, in our evolution of our own individual consciousness, we start to move into that experience that we are the same as everything else, because we come from the same place. We come from the one source. Our ego is what likes to create the illusion of that separation and likes to think of itself as everything that it perceives is outside of it. And again, this isn't wrong or bad or good, but a lot of us also, in the more Eastern way of thinking, we think that we have to get rid of the ego, when in reality, the ego is necessary in order to have an experience of love. Because remember, if we were literally one with everything, if we had that experience, then we would have no sense of that that subject that is able to have a relationship with the object. So even though everything is love, we would not be able to experience love if it wasn't for the ego being able to create that illusion of separation that gives us a subject-object relationship, so that we are able to say that I love you, or I love that, or even I love myself. Okay? So with that being said, this is where we create those relativities and these ideas of what is good and what is bad, because we believe that there's a separation. But remember, if God is unconditional love, then it says yes to everything. So, and the only way to know the only way to create that relativity of what is good and what is bad is to experience both. If we didn't have the things that we considered bad, we wouldn't know what good is. If we didn't have the idea and experience of what is cold, we wouldn't know what hot is. And again, if we didn't have that experience of what is empty and what is receptive, we wouldn't be able to experience what is full and what is trying to fill the emptiness. Again, the masculine and the feminine, the yin and the yang. So we need this duality, because this is the duality that creates consciousness, that allows us to have this experience, and that allows God to have the potential to experience itself. But again, where I feel like a lot of people get tripped up is that they try to have all one without the other, all good without the bad, all day without the night, all cold or hot without the other, without realizing that both are needed and both are necessary. So when we look out into the world and we see things that we're labeling as bad or that are evil, one, we have to realize that this is just a relativity that we have created and just a label that we are placing on things. And in reality, there is no such thing as good and bad at a fundamental level, because everything is everything and everything is no thing at the same time, because everything is God and there is nothing behind the source. So that's the first thing to realize. And then going with that, because God is unconditional love, it doesn't care, and it doesn't have a reason to care what we label as good and bad. If we want to create nuclear weapons and blow up the entire world 170 something times over, it says yes, because it is unconditional. If we want to objectify one another and kill one another in the name of power or money or prestige or whatever the reasoning might be, it says yes, because it is unconditional love. But by experiencing these things that we all tend to agree upon that are bad or evil, it allows us to see the good in what we perceive of and what we want as good. And therefore, there's this balancing act. And especially at a time right now where we are being faced with our shadow so intensely that it is forcing us to change our ways and really forcing us to look for the light. As you can see, we need this polarity in order to create the conscious awareness for that change. Everything is love. Even when it looks like it's evil or bad or whatever label that you might want to put on that. This isn't to say that you have to accept everything and that you just have to lie down and take it. But it is to say that in the whole nature of everything, of reality, that it is all perfect the way that it is unfolding. But with that being said, we have free will, because again, there's no conditions. If there was a condition, there would be, God would say no to certain things. We would not be allowed to do certain things or to think certain ways or have certain feelings. Everything is acceptable because everything is all there is. And that is the only way for God to know itself, is to experience all of itself, what we label as good and the bad. So once you realize this, you can move from that place of love, of that connection to everything and everyone. And so when you're navigating through life, you can always refer back to that reference point that everything is love, and you can ask yourself, how would love approach this situation? What choice would love make right now? While not getting caught up in the illusion that these bad things are happening out there, because those things are also a part of you, and you have the free will and the responsibility, the personal responsibility to do the things that you feel that you need to do, that you're inspired to do, to create the experience that you want to see and that you want to have in the world. Because just as God says yes to us destroying ourselves, it also says yes to us creating love and creating peace and unity and connection with one another and everything around us. That's it.